when we can connect to nature and imagination, we can find light in the darkest of times.
Welcome to It's About Magic, a sanctuary for seekers, dreamers, and those curious about the deeper mysteries of existence. Hosted by an expert in bridging the practical with the magical in the realms of holistic counseling, archetypal wisdom, and the cosmic fairy realm, every week we give you practical tools, meditative exercises, and insightful guidance so you can unleash your magic and tap into the unlimited potential inside you.
There is a form of divination called Myomancy. Myomancy uses the behavior of mice as a way of looking for guidance or predicting the future. I love the idea of myomancy because it looks at our natural world as a reflection of us, as a way for us to find guidance. We're often very caught up in our own emotional patterns and thoughts that we fail to see what is outside of us. Because the truth is, the natural world is always communicating through different signs and different guidance. I have found through my life that when we can connect to nature and imagination, we can find light in the darkest of times. Since I was a little girl, I've been deeply connected to something beyond me. I used to play with fairies in the garden. I would build them houses and leave them food and water. I would stare at the blades of grass in the backyard and wonder what type of beings lived amongst that grass and how much it must have seemed like a forest for them. I would say this imagination and this wonder came to me quite naturally. My great-grandmother was a prolific artist who painted shorebirds and herons and ships and the sea and volcanoes. My grandfather was a ship's pilot who piloted ships up and down the coast of British Columbia and spoke of rogue waves, birds, and mountains. My grandmother spent her childhood at a salmon cannery in Bones Bay up the west coast. And my mom was always a lover of gardens and nature. And my Dutch Oma and Opa always had a house full of flowers. There was this consistent dialogue with my mom that went something like this. Oh, look at the moon. Look at the way the colors are and how they hit the water right now. Look at those beautiful daffodils. And aren't those the most gorgeous magnolias? Oh, and there's heron. Look at how it's hunting for the fish. And see those delightful little cute chestnut-backed chickadees? I can see how this connected me not only to wisdom and wonder of the earth, but it also stimulated my imagination. I was encouraged through this demonstration to look at things beyond my emotions, beyond my thoughts, and beyond the sometimes challenging, difficult human experience that we all live. As I got older and went through my teenage years, where I felt quite depressed, this imagination stayed. I became very curious about past lives and other worlds. I began recording my dreams, and I continued to believe in fairies. All of this connection to wonder, imagination, and the natural world brought me a very deep sense of comfort. Through my 20s, I spent a lot of time self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, numbing out from a traumatic experience. I was living in the Kananaskis mountain range, and one day I bought a flower fairy kit from a Calgary toy store and made all of my friends these tiny, adorable little flower fairies. In the beauty of Kananaskis, I saw the connection to nature and fairies everywhere I looked. Through the way the light flickered on the snow-peaked mountains, the way the wind would move through and cause the aspen leaves to tremble. There were these butterflies that would land on the hiking paths And when they were resting, their wings would fold up. They were camouflaged because the underneath of their wings were brown. But when you would walk through them, because you couldn't see them there, they would lift off and they were about the size of a quarter. As these butterflies began to flutter, they were the most beautiful pale colors of purple, blue, pink, and yellow. There would be anywhere from 10 to 30 of them, and they would flitter off into the distance as we continued to walk past. These experiences would bring me such a sense of hope and that everything was going to be okay. All of these communications from the earth were like myomancy. They guided me. They brought me information, and they inspired me. At one point in my 30s, after yet what felt like another breakup, I was living in Vancouver, and it was a very typical wet, windy West Coast day. I was walking up West 10th Avenue to my home, and on that day, West 10th, it had a slight hill. But that day I felt like I was climbing a mountain. As I walked up this hill, my head hung, looking at the ground. My body felt heavy. All I saw was the wet pavement, the water running down the hill, and my boots. I felt like I just couldn't pull myself out of this grief, and that everything felt like it was dragging me down. For a moment in my head, I heard this thought, very simple thought. I heard these words, look up. I turned my head up, and sitting right above me on this Japanese maple tree, about 1.5 feet above my head, was a hummingbird. As my eyes rested on this tiny little bird, the hummingbird did a little dance, shook its wings as if to get rid of the water that was falling on him. It made its call, which sounds like me 2 tiny little violin strings rubbing together. And in that moment, it was as if nature, as if hummingbird, as if the fairies were saying, hey, 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 don't forget we're here. Remember to look up. Remember to look out for your connection. And remember you're not alone. I call this the unseen world. And it's only the unseen because we forget that we are of the earth. And the earth is of us. That our imagination is the portal to other worlds, other realms, hope, and connection. Remember to look up. Remember to look for the signs. Look for signs of hope, for signs of guidance. How can you be the myomancer of your life? And how can you use your connection to nature to find guidance and comfort? And so if you're ever looking for a sign, or if you're ever looking for some hope, go for a walk and ask for guidance and see what comes.